full spectrum of membership engagement from the Pacific Western region. It is my pleasure to introduce Marie Luna, who is the membership professional at the Fox Valley UU congregation in Appleton, Wisconsin. And I have known Marie for quite some time. I got involved when I was the growth strategist for the UUA. I thought, what is the crowbar for growth in our congregations? And over again, I realized it was the membership position in congregations. And right about that time, Marie and a group of other people were starting the UU Association of Membership Professionals. And it has been an absolute delight to watch them grow over the years. And Marie is such a good presenter. I am very glad to offer her to you tonight. Thank you, Marie.
Well, thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to everyone. I am thrilled to be with you tonight. Thank you, Tandy, for this invitation, and to all of you for spending a little time to hopefully be inspired, see some possible areas of growth in your congregational life, and to learn about some new tools that will help you do this important work together. So I am thrilled, as Tandy said, that we have such a diverse group of people. So there are folks from all sizes of congregations. We have paid staff people, we have ministers, we have lay leaders, and as many of you can tell, we have some wonderful groups together who came together to watch this tonight together. So I did try to create this program with all of you in mind. And please do know that, like Tandy said, we will have those resources available for you if you want to go deeper with anything that you hear tonight. We will have some time for questions, but if you don't get a chance to ask your question tonight, or if you think of something later, please do feel free to contact me at any time. So we are going to have a chalice lighting, and I know some of you are still trying to work out the kinks, but for those of you who are settled in, I ask you to close out any other tabs you might have open on your computer. I invite you to put away any screens that may be in front of you other than this presentation, and try to ground yourself in some way. You may want to touch the floor with both feet. You can sit up or stand up a bit taller. Take some mindful breaths. I invite you to center yourself for this important work that we are going to do together tonight. And if you have a candle nearby, you can light it. So our chalice lighting words come from Julie Stoneberg. We belong because we choose to belong. We belong because others have chosen to welcome us and include us and make space for us. We belong because inherent to this faith is a belief that there is room for all who come in friendship, in freedom, and in peace. So as we are here together tonight, I invite you to think about some things during this time. To start, I will ask each of these questions and give you a bit of time to think about them or jot some things down in response. And if you feel comfortable, type your thoughts into the chat box that we have tonight. I feel like it's really good to be crystal clear on why we do this work and why we do it for everyone who walks in our doors, both newcomers and long-term folks alike. So our first question, why do we open our doors to newcomers? When I think about this question, I think about how it's not just how we do this, which has been the topic of many other webinars, but why we do this. Is this part of our mission? Are there people in the greater community who truly need what you have to offer? The next question. Why do we ask people to belong to our congregations? And I'll give you a minute to think about that. So when I think of this question, rather than the traditional goal of having people sign the membership book, what we should be seeking is that every person coming into our doors finds a way to belong. This will, of course, mean different things to different people. Some are looking for solely an hour where they can sit in peace. Others are looking to get involved in justice projects, and still others are looking for some sort of personal or spiritual growth. Do all of these things mean they belong, if that's what is meaningful to them? Our next question, why do we risk congregational change for newcomers walking in our doors? And why do they risk personally changing for us? So we all have our own personal stories on why we personally belong to our congregations. And we all feel that belonging is important, otherwise we probably wouldn't be here tonight. So when I first came to the fellowship, my congregation, I was solely a visitor at that point in time. I was told that belonging to it meant that I would change. I would grow in ways that I did not expect. And I would be asked to build a better world in my own personal way. I was also told that the fellowship was also willing to change because I was now part of it. That was and continues to be a very powerful message of being in relationship, of being in covenant. There is a responsibility for both sides in this. And a very good example of our seventh principle, which states that we affirm and promote the respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. And our last question, what has changed since the election? We might need a little bit more time than the others to think about this and to process that. So I invite you to think of just the first two that come to mind, especially when it comes to congregational life. Since we first planned this webinar, the world has changed. And no matter where you stand politically, our congregations are feeling the impact. And it's something that we need to be intentional about and ready for. And I thank everyone who has been putting their comments in the chat box. It's been interesting to see what you've been saying. So thank you for that. So many of us have heard our UUA president, Peter Morales, talk about how Americans are more isolated than ever before in our history. People have fewer close friends than ever before, and yet the need for community ever grows, especially in light of the election. While we may be able to communicate via social media with people all over the world, some of us are creating us versus them groups who are what we might think of as our team, or those who believe in what we believe, and who isn't, who's on the other side of that. And unfortunately, we are now learning about each other, and in a very base way, mostly through what links we share on social media. And we are coming to find out that some of those links don't even actually have any basis in fact. And so this is so different than what we used to do not very long ago in face-to-face conversations, where we could have a true interaction with someone who may feel differently about each other, but we can see the humanity in each other as we have those conversations. But what we've been doing to each other on Facebook and other social media has lost a lot of that humanity. You know, of course, there are very important community groups on social media that people truly depend upon. But we do need to remember the limitations that are there. For example, we are finding out that Facebook is set up to show us what we want to see. And that really does and can set us up for disappointment and even shock when things happen differently than what we think they will. So, truthfully, have things become a little more tense in your congregations lately? It really has in mine in some ways, between our Black Lives Matter banner that some people just truly don't agree with, to knowing that there are people in my congregation that voted differently than the majority of the crowd. We've had to be very careful with each other. And so many of us are learning for the first time how to follow others' leads, for example, marginalized groups. And our privilege has been being talked about quite a lot, which is also very new for a lot of us. But this is really such an important opportunity for our congregations to teach our people how to be hyper-relational. We need to, rather than allowing our discomfort to keep us away, where we might hide behind literal walls or even invisible ones like our screens. Of course, our Unitarian Universalist faith has done this before, but many of us have not experienced it. And so we need to help them through their discomfort and help them grow. We need to invite our people to lean in to the discomfort and support them as they do. So this model, the spectrum of faithful relationship, was first introduced at General Assembly in 2015 by my colleague Lori Emma Sinclair, the UUA Outreach Director Carrie McDonald, and myself. This spectrum we came up with is really grounded in UU theology as a leading edge of practice in religious communities. And so I will talk about how awareness of where people are on the spectrum and what they need at different points is the key to inviting them into deeper relationship with our shared faith. Most people seek our congregations out when they are in time of transition, whether it be a new baby, a marriage, a divorce, a move. There's lots of reasons why they seek us out. But at this point in time, the transition is our country. And for many of us, it's the biggest transition we have seen in our lives. And of course, any transition means change, and any change brings anxiety. We want to make sure that we are caring for those who seek us out in very intentional ways. So I will explain what each of these points on the spectrum are, how people move along that spectrum, and to show you how you can track people in each area. The more tracking that we do, the easier it is to work with this intentionally. We can be careful of over-asking our, what I call yes people, those people who say yes to everything and who we love to ask to do things because they say yes to us. Those are the folks that we can very easily burn out because one more thing might be the ticket. So tracking helps us see who we need to be checking in with. It helps us see who would be the appropriate people to ask for the needs that we have in our congregation. And tracking takes time. And I will be the first to admit that I have often put it to the bottom of my priority list. But every time I do it, I get so much valuable information out of it. So it's just a good place to start. So the first spot on our spectrum is the curious individual. These people are those who are in sync with our values, but not involved in our programs or ministries. They may participate in community activities related to a UU group. They may follow UUs on social media. They may share our content. They may read our books. They may see or even support our social justice activities. So we need to really pay attention to how we are showing up virtually. This includes our websites, our social media pages. It includes places like Yelp and Google and other search functions. It includes news media. So we need to make sure that we are looking as beautiful on the outside as we are on the inside. Tracking these people includes seeing who is using your website and social media accounts by the unique visitors, which means the very first time they've ever come upon your website or social media page. There are tools of how to do this, and they are available easily. So I invite you to learn more if you don't already do this in your congregation. You can see who is listening to your podcasts. The UUA Outreach Office has such wonderful resource ideas on how to do this work better, whether you're brand new or whether you've done it before. And so I invite you to use this information to invite people to take their next step on the spectrum journey. You can highlight an outreach event that has UU values, but is not solely for Unitarian Universalists, like a play group or a social justice project or a community dinner. Make sure that those organizers of whatever that is know how to welcome newcomers so they can be seen and cared for. My congregation is going to offer an opportunity for people to come together face-to-face after the election results. We want them to be able to come together in small groups to talk about how we are feeling, what we long for, and what we're going to do about it. It's based on a curriculum from Krista Tippett's Civil Conversations project. And we'll be placing ads for this event on Facebook in hopes of attracting community members who are really looking for a place to talk about their fears and hopes, but who probably haven't come through our doors yet. And we think that this is going to be a really good opportunity to reach out into our greater community and have a place to come together for some healing, but also to come together and know that there's other people that may not share exactly the same beliefs as us, but that we can really do this together. Another great UUA outreach resource just came out this week. I was just reading this email today. They just released Xmas CTA, which are ideas for calls to action for the holiday season. So you can probably check out their information on the website, or I read it through the Growing UU blog, which we will link to in our resource page. And it's really a fun time of year to think about how we can reach out to our greater community. A lot of people are lonely around the holidays, and we can really be a great place of community for them. The next step on our spectrum is the welcomed visitor. So a welcome visitor is someone who is involved in Unitarian Universalist programs or ministries at a very basic or fluid level, but may or may not identify as a Unitarian Universalist. So they may attend events hosted by our congregations. They may occasionally, or even for the first time, come to a service. And to succeed in this area, we really need to create multiple entry points that don't revolve around Sunday morning. We also need to pay attention to the visitor experience. The transition from this stage to the next is often the pathway to membership. But I want to be clear that signing the book is not the #1 goal like it has been in the past. We all have people in our congregations that are deeply involved who have never officially joined. Joining is, of course, an important concept for many of us in our communities. And so we will always celebrate and uplift the act of joining, and we do need to have a very clear path to membership. And just so you know, there are many great examples of path to memberships that you can find on the UUApp website, which we'll also link to. But for this spectrum, we really wanted to stay away from the term member, because anyone can be on this spectrum and not have just, signed the membership book. Knowing your congregation may have rules against non-members, for example, being on the board of directors like my congregation, or there may be other areas that you do need to be a member of. Most of our congregations have a little bit more fluidity and open-endedness when it comes to that. We really want to pay attention to this. Even the UUA has been asking congregations to not just track membership numbers, but the impact that we're making on people, on all people. So the welcomed visitor is really the point where individual tracking can start. I personally use an Excel spreadsheet to track who is coming and what they've been invited to and what they have attended. You can then use this information to see how your congregation is doing using a wonderful resource called Congregations Count by Linda Liskowski. This program helps you compare your numbers to other congregations to see how you're doing. I know when I first started working at the fellowship, I would have had no idea what types of percentages I should be paying attention to. And her program really sets it out in a really great way. So you'll be paying attention to the visitors that walk in your door, to who's returning, to who you're losing, and what all of
Uh-oh, Marie, I think we've lost you. Your
Hello?
sound. Hold on. Now you're on.
Am I back?
Yes.
Okay. So what was the last thing I said? I'll go back to it.
It was just at the end of Congregations Count.
Okay. Wonderful. So Congregations Count is a really great program that gives you some very important data, and you can find more information about it by just searching Congregations Count right on the UUA website. So the next part of our path is the connected friend. This is the person who comes to a one-time or low commitment activity outside of services. Examples include social dinners, a one-time small group, helping set up at an event, or even serving coffee. These folks may not have had the time to be more involved, but they may also just need an invitation to take that next step. So every year, I focus on a different population to deeply check in with in one-on-one meetings. And this particular group is always really an important one to do that with, because whenever I do, it often leads to much deeper engagement. People can really feel really nervous about joining an established long-term group on their own without encouragement. But once they do join that group, we think of them as engaged participants. This is someone who has committed to a monthly or more small group or activity. These groups have an expectation of going deeper and getting to know others beyond casual chit-chat. These are the groups that are involved. These are the groups that have a skilled facilitator, a method of welcoming new people at the various stages of group development, and they need to have a process for handling inappropriate behaviors. So these groups include whatever your type of small group ministry is, like covenant groups or chalice circles. It also includes being a religious education teacher, being on a committee, or the pastoral care team. The list goes on and on. And then as people are involved in these groups, you will really get to know their interests, their skills, and their passions, and natural leaders will emerge. So the integrated leader is our last step on this spectrum. And those are the people who are invited into leadership into our congregations, whether it be a committee chair, a small group leader, a worship leader, coming of age mentor. We think of these folks as integrated because when you are leading a program, you add your own personal touch to that program and you change the system because of it. So congregations can intentionally create avenues for this when we offer leadership development programming. Mine uses parts of the UUA curriculum called Harvest the Power, which is available free right on the UUA website. We really want to pay attention to those who are engaged individuals to become our natural leaders. So I and our other staff members of my congregation are especially inviting our leaders to the face-to-face conversations that I mentioned earlier in response to the election. We really hope that they will bring similar conversations to their groups and even beyond our walls. So we have found that inviting people to participate in a leadership development class allows us to find the very best fit for each person. We've also been able to determine who isn't going to be as successful in certain areas and find different fits for them. So every year that we have offered a leadership development class, we kind of end up having a pool of people that our nominating committee can really tap into. And the nominating committee, which is the same as our leadership development committee, already knows these people. They have a relationship with them, and it's a joyful act of being able to ask them to move into leadership. Now, I certainly want to be very clear that not everyone will hit every point on this spectrum, and everyone won't start with point number 1 and move on to the last point. At some point, those who are leaders will need to come back, to drop back down to either being connected or engaged to allow for new leadership, and again, for making sure we don't burn them out. So it really can vary depending on the person, but overall, this is kind of a way to really think about how we want to see involvement within our congregations. So some practical practical tools for you. You know, the way you track can really be as simple or as complex as you'd like to make them. So I personally use 2 spreadsheets. One is for visitor tracking and one is for engagement. So the details are shown. You know, when Lori, Carrie, and I led our General Assembly program, introducing the spectrum, I really wanted to make sure that I was able to identify who was where. And, you know, I really easily did when I looked at both of these spreadsheets. I could see who fit into what are the areas, and that really allowed me opportunities to invite them to move along the spectrum, which I think of as being in relationship with our people, you know, checking in with them when they're not around, finding out whether they are getting what they need from us, and even tracking to see, like, how do people fall? You know, what are the numbers in each of the different areas? Because we can't have everyone in one area at all times in our congregations. There needs to be balance. There needs to be some spreading out. So ideally, especially when it comes to engagement, people are involved in areas that they're both being fed, whether it be a small group or you know, being taken care of through our pastoral care team, things like that, but also ways that they're feeding others or they're helping do the work. Not everyone can do this at all times, but it's a nice way to balance things out. You know, it's also, these spreadsheets are invaluable when it comes to the springtime, when you need to fill roles in almost every area of your congregation. And so you can make sure that you are not over asking, that you are finding areas of appropriate fit. If you are trying to find people for your board, for example, you want to find people who have been involved in things prior to that, so they have a good understanding of the congregation. And, you know, and if you can't find someone for a certain role and you know what everyone's doing, it might be time to to really relook at that role, and maybe it's not something that's needed as much in your congregation as it once did. So success, you know, what does success look like? One of the ways that in our congregation we look at success is by looking at our mission statement and how are we fulfilling our mission. So my congregation's mission is welcoming all, growing in mind and spirit, and leading in social justice. So by tracking newcomers and involvement, I can see who we are affecting in each of these 3 areas, as well as who we're not serving. I can follow up and make changes when I see those needs. So for example, in the last couple of years, we were seeing a lot of families with a lot of babies coming. But we didn't have a playgroup for them. So I asked some parents who had been around a while to rotate hosting a weekly playgroup. And we actually invited a bunch of newcomers to it. And then we actually had several people who had actually not come in the building before come to the playgroup. It's a great first step to anything else that's going on in your congregation. So they checked us out and they took those next steps to come to a service the next weekend. And it was a really successful way of saying there's a need here, there was a hole here, and we were able to fill that, at least temporarily. So this is a really anxious time for many of us and many of our people. We have a responsibility, we have the honor of finding ways to invite people to our congregations when they so desperately need community and a place to belong in our congregations in ways that are really meaningful to them. So I hope that you can use some of these ideas and these resources that I shared to make positive changes in your congregation. This is quite sacred work, And as former moderator Ginny Quarter shared so powerfully, how are we caring today for the many people who dare get out of bed on a Sunday morning and risk meeting us in hopes that we will provide the religious community they want? Let us treat each visitor as the precious gift they are, just as we were when we first visited. This is not rocket science. This is human love.
Thank you so much, Marie. You gave us an awful lot to consider and think about. I invite people, as you have questions or requests for specific resources, to go ahead and write those in the chat box. And the chat box, you'll find a little bubble at the bottom of the screen. You click on that and type it in. We will answer some questions now. Maybe people don't have questions. Any comments, any sparky ideas that came up for you that you want to share? Oh, here, Valley, Unitarian. We are debating at what point on this path to officially enter people into our permanent database. Good question.
I'm sorry, I was trying to figure out how to get the chat up. I don't have it. Can you repeat it, please?
Sure. We are debating at what point on this path to officially enter people into our permanent database. Oh,
okay. Thank you. You know, what we do is when they walk in the door and give us their information, they go into our database. And so it's not going to ever be 100%. I would love to get more people. You know, some people walk in the doors on their very first visit and they're willing to give us that information, and not everyone is, which I understand. You kind of want to go through a service before you write down your contact information. But we definitely encourage people to do that when they start visiting. I invite them, or I tell them where it is on that first visit, and then afterwards I encourage it even more. So I would say the more information we get from people, the easier it is to follow up with them. And certainly following up is an important way to get them back the second and third and fourth times.
Excellent. Thank you. And Marie, if you want to unshare your screen, then we'll be able to see just you, and you'll be able to see the chat. There we go. That was clear. All right. So let's see. What kind of publicity do you do?
So we have, we are going through a minister transition. So our PR and outreach and publicity has changed dramatically year to year because of that. But you know, more of a sustainable time of publicity, I would say, is we do, I do a lot through Facebook. I find that our population really is on Facebook right now, and so we try to do that. We are just starting to do ads on Facebook, and we did an event recently, and we're going to be doing our, like I said, our face-to-face conversations and our Christmas Eve services. We're going to be doing some paid advertising, which I think is going to be a good way to do it. We also have a local both certainly a public radio station and a local nonprofit radio station that we place ads on, which are great for those events that anyone is invited to. And then we've done things like we've had bus ads, which has been really fun, and we have tried to have some new publicity through like a branding campaigns or t-shirts and bumper stickers and things like that. So we try a lot of different things out, and the UUA Outreach Office is a really great place to get resources for that as well.
Okay, I'm going to whip through these. We've got some fantastic questions. How do you keep track of visitors short of taking roll at every event, including Sundays?
I think this is one of those things that that's going to be imperfect, and I am really wanting to track better. And so the encouraging them to fill out the card is one thing, but I'm going to be trying to work with my welcomers especially so that we can capture just the details that we're getting. Like, I chatted with these 3 people, and here were their bullet points of what they were looking for and why. We're really lucky we have that, we have this paid staff person. My role means that I'm at most services. And so I am a consistent presence, and I know most congregations don't have that. But if you have a place where you can kind of keep track of that, and it allows the dedicated people within the membership committee or whoever is working on that to have, I think that's going to be a really important piece of that.
Excellent. And what database do you use, and can visitors enter their own information, or do they fill out a form?
The database question always comes up. So our congregation used Power Church, and I would not recommend it. I think that there are many other much better ones out there, and there's a ton of online ways of getting that information. And so find a Facebook group, or find the administrator's email list, or anything, because there's a lot of chat on that all the time.
I just want to put a plug what not to do. Don't have somebody who knows databases. Oh, I know databases. Let me make you a special database all your own. And then they leave and you don't know how to use it. Please don't do that. Okay.
Yeah, they're expensive, but there's a reason for it.
Yep. How to care for and encourage all of our welcoming connectors and engagement leader volunteers. How do you care for and encourage them?
I have been doing a lot of informal training with them, because I think that it's never ending. And so there's a series of wonderful resources that go out that we've put out on UUAMP, that we have. In fact, I should do a plug right now. Everyone is invited to join UUAMP. So it's the Unitarian Universalist Association of Membership Professionals. We are all of our congregations are trying to professionalize membership work one way or another. And so lay leaders are very welcome to join us. Check out our website. We have a ton of resources on there. We also, once you join, you can be part of our Facebook group that has unbelievable conversations. We'll have a conference in March in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we're just trying to do this work better, and we want to share ideas and share resources, and we don't want to have to invent the wheel. We have people from all congregational sizes all over the country joining us, and so please do, because there's so much out there that we can really support each other on.
All right, and we have a question from Sherry. It sounds like you have a dedicated staff person for membership. Yes, that'd be Marie. Do congregants also play a part in owning this process of moving people along the spectrum? How do you enlist them in working with you?
Oh, that's such a good question. And that would be a really good piece to add to this whole work program of how do we do that? I would say that it has to be a huge effort. I mean, it just really has to be. And so, the initial pieces are your PR committee or whatever outreach folks you have working in social media and on your website, and having people that are really mindful of the newcomer experience on that side of things is critical. You can't have someone who has been around so long and forgot what it means to not use acronyms, for example. A lot of our websites have a lot of insider language on them, and that is it's really hard to join something that looks like a family. You can't just walk in someone's house and sit down on their couch. You need to have that warm welcome. And so that's kind of that far side of the spectrum is that team of folks. And then as you move over, it's your welcomers and your ushers and your greeters who are making sure that those people walking in the door are welcome visitors, that they do have that warm welcome, and lots of great training opportunities online to help them learn those things if they need to. And then as you move along, it's your it is a lot of your current standing leadership who is helping help people find connections, whether it's staff people or lay leaders. They, if they're part of a group and they meet someone, invite them to come participate with you, because then they have a friendly face that they can do. And then as you move into leadership, that is your leadership development or nominating committee, or and staff people who, you know, really work on that side of things. So it is a congregational effort, absolutely. But it's just a little bit more intentional about it. It's more paying attention what's working really well, and build on those strengths, and what needs work and what needs to be focused on.
Thank you. How many people who visit and get added to your database drop out? Do you have lots of names that don't participate?
You know, if I would have paid more attention to my congregation's count this year, I would have much better data for you. But unfortunately, this minister transition did not allow me to do it this year. You know, so I don't have numbers, but yes, of course, we definitely have, you know, what Peter Morales calls the back door, people who come and then they don't come back. And I would say that sometimes that's going to be something on us, and often it's probably on them as well, or it's just not the right fit for them, and they tried us out, and that's important. What I hope that they leave with is the knowledge that they can come back, that we never. It's never a one and done thing if it works out later for them. And sometimes we find out. Just last weekend, I met some people who said, we haven't been here for 2 years because we had a baby and all this stuff happened, but we came one time 2 years ago and now they're back. So it's very situational. And, but again, when we capture that information, we can send out those emails. We can send out those, hey, you know, just wanted to throw it out there. We're here if you need anything. No pressure. We don't do the pressure thing, but we do the invitation thing.
Okay, this isn't a very positive question. Nobody's asked it, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it because I bet somebody's thinking it. Here's that, you know, it doesn't cost anything to have somebody in a database. Mm-hmm. And having that information, I think for some people it does their hearts good just knowing that the Unitarian Universals are out there doing their thing. And so I think absolutely the more the merrier. Membership, I think, is such a covenantal responsibility to be part of a religious community, that belonging comes with responsibility. When do people become not members? How is that decided?
Mm-hmm. I think that's
not flippantly.
I think that's a really good question, because we do really want to be intentional about who is on our membership list. And because for those people who choose to join, it is a step that they've taken. And that means that we're taking that step with them. And so in my congregation, our bylaw states that a member is someone who has, when they join, they have to fill out a pledge card, and that activates their membership. And then in order to stay a member, they need to have given within the past 2 years financial contribution of record, or be on our waiver list. And that's not the only way to know whether or not someone is still around, but it's a way. And so that is a great opportunity. So once a year, we go through the list to see who has not given in the last 2 years a contribution of record. And that's the time to send a beautifully crafted letter to them saying, we have, and of course also that we haven't seen them in a while, but to say, we haven't seen you in a while. You know, where are you at? We invite you to let us know if there's things that you need from us, but maybe you have moved on and we just didn't know about it. So if we don't hear from you, then we will take you off the list. And here are all sorts of other things that you can check on a postcard to tell us that you do need from us, whether it be pastoral needs or other things. So it's just one way to be able to have intentionality around who is on our membership list.
Great. All right. And I'll make sure that I get that letter from you to send to people, because I'm sure people are like, I want to get that list. I'm also seeing a trend where people are having a whole congregation recovenanting. So it's not just about the Pledge of Record, Pledge of Record, which has been a predominant mode for us, but also that saying yes to being a responsible part of religious community. So I'm seeing that more and more.
I love that. Have you seen like specific rituals that we could maybe do like a blog post on or something? Because I think
that's the next thing. We'll be in touch, because I
yeah.
can see some really cool stuff
Cool.
and opportunities. Oh my gosh. The last question that has come in is, how much time per week do you spend for input, update, spreadsheet tracking visitors and engaged individuals?
Oh gosh. It's not by any means a week to week thing. It's a big push in August is when I try to do it. To get my spreadsheet in order, that's when I do that piece. And then you're right, there is some ongoing stuff, especially with visitors. But I'm lucky enough to have a secretary that inputs all of the information about the visitors into my spreadsheet. And then the ongoing nature of my engagement spreadsheet is heavy in August to get it all updated for the year. And then as I know things change, that I do update it, but I don't as ongoing as maybe I could. But it's really to say, when we have cabaret and the chair is looking for 5 people to help set up, I can go to my spreadsheet, find a bunch of people who actually aren't involved in anything else, because it's a great first step into involvement, and say, here's the names of people to ask. Or on the other hand, I have our DRE, our Director of Religious Education, who says, I need some new names as teachers. And so here are a list of people that I think would be good teachers because of what they've already been involved in or the skill set that they bring. So it's just a really great way to make those asks easier.
All right. We are at that time, friends. Maria, I want to thank you so much. I know it's late where you are, and so a special thank you for coming. And expect to see an email from me within the next 24 hours with more resources for what we talked about. If you have more questions that come in as you've digested the information, by all means, pop me an email. I'll put that in the chat. I have a closing for us. This is from Reverend Wayne Arneson. And many of you, I know, have used it before in your congregations. And when I start, some of you will be able to say the words along with me. I've used this more and more. It becomes more poignant. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard. The path is never clear. And the stakes are very high. Take courage. For deep down, there is another truth. You are not alone. Thank you so much. Here.
Thank you, everyone.